You know, it is, it's really kind of funny how we handle acquiring complex things in our modern lives.
Oh, totally. What do you mean?
Well, like if you go out and buy a new car, or I don't know, even just a moderately fancy espresso machine,
Right.
it comes with this thick, detailed manual. It tells you exactly what fuel or water to use, or, when to descale the
And
filters.
how to interpret every single blinking light on the display.
Yes, exactly. But then you bring home a living, breathing, incredibly complex biological system, like a puppy,
Oh, yeah.
and you are kind of just handed a leash, a bag of kibble, and like a general wish of good luck.
Which is wild because the irony is that the biological system is infinitely more complex than the espresso machine.
Yeah.
I mean, a dog has a physiological dashboard that is incredibly nuanced.
Huh.
The problem is that the check engine light is usually, well, it's entirely hidden from the owner.
Right, until something goes wrong.
Exactly, until something is fundamentally and sometimes irreversibly broken. So owners are largely left to figure out the maintenance schedule through pure trial and error.
And trial and error is just a really stressful, expensive way to operate, especially when you're talking about a creature you love.
Absolutely.
So, welcome, the learner. If you are joining us today, you are right on time. Because for this deep dive, we are throwing out that trial and error approach.
They really are.
We're looking at a masterclass and reading that biological dashboard. Our source material today is this comprehensive summary drawn from a massive 10-episode veterinary series.
Yeah, the Rottweiler Health Academy.
Right.
And this series is just a remarkable synthesis of veterinary science. They took hours upon hours of clinical lectures,
Which covers, like, everything.
everything from early puppy development all the way through to senior palliative care, and they distilled it down to the absolute core principles.
Wow.
I've been going through the transcripts, organizing my notes,
Yeah.
and the biological patterns that emerge are just genuinely fascinating.
And the goal of our deep dive today is to extract the ultimate lifetime health checklist from those sources. But here's the thing. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Even if you do not own a Rottweiler, or even if you don't own a dog at all, stick with us. Because the framework of preventive adaptive care that we are about to explore is honestly a masterclass in how to pay attention.
It really applies to so much more.
Right. It is about how we observe the animals we care about, and frankly, the people we care about too.
Exactly. The Rottweiler is just our specific case study today.
Yeah.
I mean, because of their size and unique physiology, they basically act as a magnifying glass.
Oh, so.
Well, if you make a nutritional or structural mistake with a 10-pound dog, you might get away with it for a while.
Sure.
But if you make that exact same mistake with a 100-pound working breed, the consequences show up loud and clear. It gives us a very sharp lens through which to look at a universal approach to health and longevity.
That makes total sense. So let's start with the physical foundation. Before we can talk about advanced behavioral training or, fancy veterinary diagnostics, we have to talk about the physical structure.
The hardware.
Yes, the hardware. Looking at the sources, there was one theme that absolutely dominated the entire 10-episode series. It was the bedrock of everything else.
Body condition and lean weight.
Yes. I know we hear about weight all the time, but why was this the absolute obsession of these veterinarians?
Well, we have to look at the anatomy. Rottweilers, by their very genetic nature, carry massive muscular frames.
They're huge dogs.
They're incredibly dense.
Yeah.
And the source material makes a stark biomechanical point. Because of that heavy frame, they were already placing a massive demand on their joints just by standing up and walking around.
Right.
So every single extra pound of fat adds completely unnecessary strain. But it isn't just about the mechanics of gravity.
Wait, what else is it about if not just carrying, like, a heavy backpack of fat?
It's about biochemistry. The veterinary sources go into detail explaining that fat is not just inert dead weight sitting on the dog's body.
Okay.
Adipose tissue, fat is an active endocrine organ. It actively secretes pro-inflammatory hormones called adipokines.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, so when a dog is overweight, their joints aren't just suffering from the mechanical stress of the extra pounds. They're being bathed in chemical inflammation from the inside out.
That sounds awful.
It is. That combination rapidly degrades joint cartilage.
That is wild. I always just pictured it as a physics problem, not like a chemical fire in the joints.
A chemical fire is a great way to put it.
And the visual metric the sources provide to prevent this is very specific. They say a healthy weight doesn't just mean the dog looks proportional to you, because humans have a terrible gauge for this.
We really do.
Right. It means you should be able to physically feel the dog's ribs without having to press your hands in deeply. And when you look down at the dog from above, you should see a clearly defined waistline.
Exactly. You should easily feel the ribs under a thin layer of skin and muscle, much like feeling the bones in the back of your hand.
Okay, the back of the hand, not the palm.
Right. If it feels like the palm of your hand, the dog is carrying too much fat.
Which brings up my favorite analogy from going through this material. If we think of a large dog's joints like a lifelong bank account, every extra pound of fat and every drop of that inflammatory chemical you mentioned is like a daily withdrawal fee.
Yes, that's a perfect way to look at
It
it.
doesn't bankrupt the account on day one, but over a decade. Those daily fees compound into a massive, crippling deficit. You are draining the joint account before the dog even reaches old age.
Absolutely draining it.
But I want to push back on this a little bit. Keeping a dog lean sounds incredibly simple on paper.
Sure.
Why is it so profoundly difficult for owners to actually do it in reality when the vets are screaming that it is the single most protective thing they can do?
What's fascinating here is the psychology of the owner, not the biology of the dog. For so many of us, food equals love.
Oh, yeah, totally.
When a dog looks up at you with those eyes, handing them a piece of cheese or an extra biscuit is a quick, guaranteed way to get a positive emotional exchange.
I'm definitely guilty of that.
We all are. We're rewarding ourselves with that dopamine hit as much as we are rewarding the dog. But the source makes a critical, empowering point.
We is.
Maintaining a lean body condition is the one physical factor an owner has absolute daily control over.
Right.
You cannot rewrite their genetic code. You cannot shield them from every environmental illness, but you absolutely control every single calorie that goes into their bowl.
You control the deposits into the bank account.
Exactly.
And the source also emphasizes that protecting that joint account isn't just about weight. It's a lifetime accumulation of choices based on their biology. For instance, they talked a lot about puppyhood and the timeline of growth plates.
Yes, the epiphyseal plates, or growth plates, in a giant breed dog take much longer to fuse than in a small dog.
How long are we talking?
The sources note this can take up to 18 to 24 months for a Rottweiler.
2 years. Wow.
Yeah. So if you take a 6-month-old large breed puppy and force them to jog 3 miles on concrete every day, you are causing microtraumas to soft developing cartilage. You're essentially guaranteeing early onset osteoarthritis.
So during puppyhood, it's about highly controlled, low-impact growth.
Right.
Then, as they transition into adulthood and the plates fuse, the strategy shifts to purposeful, moderate exercise. And finally, in their senior years, the sources say you have to shift your own human expectations.
Which is really hard for people.
Yeah. The goal for an 8-year-old Rottweiler isn't building maximum cardiovascular fitness. It is preserving comfort and mobility.
The routine has to evolve. I mean, you cannot apply the exercise regimen of a 3-year-old dog to an 8-year-old dog and expect the joints to survive.
Which is a huge mental shift for an owner who is used to their rugged, indestructible young dog.
Okay, so we've established the physical framework, the bones and joints.
Right.
Let's move away from the car metaphors and talk about what goes into the system on a daily basis, nutrition and mental engagement. This is where the concept of maintaining that lean body condition collides with the reality of how we actually feed and live with this specific breed.
The sources hit really hard on the idea of adaptive nutrition. They specifically call out the set it and forget it mentality.
Oh, the brand loyalty thing?
Yes. You buy a specific brand in the yellow bag when they are a puppy, and you just keep buying that exact same yellow bag for the next 10 years out of sheer habit.
Yeah.
The text argues that nutrition has to be aggressively adapted to the dog's actual current life stage.
Absolutely. A rapidly growing puppy building bone density, an active adult dog maintaining muscle mass, and a slowing senior dog whose metabolism has dropped. They all have vastly different metabolic requirements.
Right.
But the sources push beyond just telling you to buy the right bag of food for their age. They explicitly warn owners against blindly trusting the printed portion guidelines on the back of the packaging.
I found that part so validating, because those bags always seem to recommend feeding your dog like they're actively training to pull a sled across Antarctica.
Yeah, you have to consider the source of the information. Manufacturer guidelines are broad generalizations, and frankly, they often err on the higher side because they are in the business of selling dog food.
Right. They want you to buy more bags.
Exactly. Portion control means adjusting the actual volume in the cup based on the dog's current body condition. That rib and waistline check we just covered.
Got it.
Furthermore, a massive blind spot for owners is treat calories.
Right. If you are doing a 20-minute training session and handing out 40 little treats, those treats aren't a free bonus.
No, they are not.
They are a significant percentage of their daily caloric intake, and you have to reduce their dinner to account for it.
Exactly. The calories all count toward the same metabolic bottom line.
Which brings us to the actual training and exercise. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the conventional wisdom out there, the thing you hear shouted at every dog park across the country, is that a physically exhausted dog is a well-behaved dog. Just throw the ball until their tongue is dragging on the grass. But reading the veterinary behaviorists in this series, I have to ask, is simply running a dog into the ground actually backfiring if you aren't engaging their brain at the same time?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of the breed's history, the answer is a definitive yes.
Really?
Yes. You are actually just creating a super athlete that will eventually require more and more physical exercise to get tired. The sources point out that Rottweilers have Roman cattle-driving origins.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Thousands of years ago, they were bred to move massive livestock over long distances. That specific job requires intense focus, staring down threats, impulse control, and short, purposeful bursts of activity to keep a herd in line.
So they're not just running for miles and miles.
No, they are a working breed, built for problem-solving, not mindless, pure endurance running like a husky.
They aren't marathon runners. They are tactical linebackers.
That is a perfect description. And because of that working heritage, physical exercise and mental stimulation are inseparable for them. If you just run a Rottweiler on a treadmill to physically exhaust them, you are leaving the most demanding part of their biology, their brain, completely untouched.
That makes sense.
And the source uses a great phrase. A bored, understimulated Rottweiler doesn't just go to sleep, it becomes resourceful in ways owners won't appreciate.
Resourceful. I love how diplomatic veterinarians can be, because they shared a hilarious but terrifying anecdote about this.
Oh, the ice machine story.
Yes. There was a case study in the series about an understimulated Rottweiler who got bored while the owners were at work. He didn't just chew a shoe.
No.
He figured out how to operate the ice dispenser on the refrigerator door. He dispensed a mountain of ice onto the floor, ate half of it, and flooded the entire kitchen. That is what resourceful means.
They will invent a job if you don't provide one.
Exactly.
To produce a calm, truly satisfied demeanor, you have to engage the mind. The sources suggest incorporating structured training sessions into walks or utilizing scent work.
Explain the scent work part, because they lean heavily on that. Why is sniffing so important?
Well, the olfactory bulb in a dog's brain is massive compared to ours. Processing complex odors, like hiding a specific scent in a room and making them find it, requires massive amounts of cognitive energy.
Oh, so it actually tires them out mentally.
Yes, the brain burns glucose to process those smells. 20 minutes of intense scent work where they have to focus and solve a puzzle will tire a Rottweiler out significantly more than a mindless 3-mile jog.
Wow.
It is about purpose over miles.
So you have the lean structure, you have the highly adapted fuel, and you are running the mental software with purposeful scent work and training.
Yep, that's the foundation.
But even the best maintained systems need professional diagnostics. Which brings us to what the sources call the proactive partnership. Maintaining the physical and mental health is useless if you ignore the warning signs of disease.
And this requires a fundamental shift in how most people interact with the veterinary system.
Right. The text notes that most of us operate with a completely reactive mindset. We only call the vet when the dog is visibly limping, refusing to eat, or vomiting.
We wait until the check engine light is flashing red.
Exactly. We wait until something is undeniably broken. But the series argues that the primary goal of dog ownership is to shift to a proactive mindset. Regular wellness visits. You are trying to build a longitudinal picture of the dog's health over time.
Proactive care means establishing baselines. And that care isn't a one-and-done deal with puppy shots.
Right.
It means staying current on vaccines, parasite prevention, and critically, dental care throughout the entire arc of their life.
They mention dental disease a lot.
Yeah, dental disease alone can seed bacteria into the bloodstream and actually damage the heart valves. And the frequency of those wellness visits should evolve as the dog ages.
The sources say annual visits are the standard for healthy adults, but they emphatically state you should shift to twice-yearly visits once they hit their senior years.
Yes, they do.
Why this sudden increase in frequency? Is it really necessary to go every 6 months?
We have to remember that biological time moves vastly differently for a dog, especially a giant breed. A senior dog's organ systems will often compensate for failing function until they suddenly can't. A lot of physiological degradation can occur in a 6-month window when an animal is aging rapidly,
So things can go downhill fast.
very fast. Catching early-stage renal failure, a heart murmur, or joint degradation 6 months earlier allows the vet to intervene with diet changes or medication. Catching it early can completely change the quality and duration of their remaining years.
Speaking of things like cardiac and orthopedic issues, the sources brought up responsible breeding.
A very important topic.
They emphasized that good breeders should be screening the parents for these specific health conditions before ever producing a litter. But they made a really interesting, nuanced distinction. Breed predispositions represent an increased likelihood, not a certainty.
Yes.
I think that's comforting. Just because you have a Rottweiler doesn't mean they are doomed to have hip dysplasia or bone cancer. It just means you need to be highly aware that the likelihood is statistically higher.
Exactly. Knowing those predispositions tells you what specific warning signs to look for. But to be aware of any early warning signs, the owner has to know their individual dog's normal baseline.
Which brings me to this idea of the baseline. Knowing your dog's baseline is like listening to a song you know perfectly. You instantly recognize when a single note is played out of tune.
That's a great analogy.
You might not know what chord is being played or what instrument is broken, but you know the song sounds wrong. But let me play devil's advocate here, because we've all been there.
Sure.
Dogs have weird off days, they get tired because it's hot, or they get an upset stomach from eating grass in the yard.
Totally normal stuff.
Right. How is an owner supposed to tell the difference between a dog just having a lazy Tuesday afternoon and a clinical symptom that requires an expensive vet visit? Are we supposed to panic every time they skip breakfast?
The biology of a dog's digestive and recovery system actually gives us a clear boundary here. The sources address this exact anxiety, and the key filter they use is the word persistent.
Persistent.
Okay, occasional off days are completely normal. The half-life of a simple upset stomach in a dog is usually about 24 hours.
Right.
But persistent lameness that lasts for days, ongoing changes in appetite, unusual lethargy that stretches into a 48-hour period, or repeating digestive distress, those are the clinical signals.
Okay.
The text really relieves the pressure on the owner here. Your job isn't to diagnose the issue. You don't need to know the medical terminology. You just have to notice the persistent pattern and relay the facts to the veterinarian.
The word persistent is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, and it is incredibly helpful. It is the difference between a one-off glitch and a repeating error code.
Exactly.
But catching those repeating patterns brings us to the final and maybe most practical section of our deep dive, the administrative side of things.
The overlooked essentials. Spotting persistent slow-moving changes is nearly impossible if you are relying solely on human memory.
Yeah, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Right. Human memory is notoriously flawed, especially when it comes to slow, creeping physiological changes over 6 to 12 months.
The source material dives deep into record keeping. They highlight that keeping accurate, accessible records like tracking monthly weight trends, vaccine history, and daily observations is highly underrated by most owners.
Very much so.
They specifically mention an app called Vital Pet that can track this stuff digitally.
So what does this all mean? Am I really supposed to be out there on a morning dog walk with a spreadsheet?
Well, no.
I mean, am I supposed to treat my pet like a science experiment with data tracking? Because that sounds like it sucks the joy right out of having a dog. This raises an important question about the reality of modern pet ownership and what we owe these animals. Let's look at what the veterinary text is actually arguing for here.
Okay.
They are not framing this as obsessive clinical data tracking that turns your best friend into a lab rat. They are framing it as a highly effective tool to relieve your own mental burden, particularly during high-stress situations.
Like an emergency at 2 a.m.
Precisely. The source is very explicit about emergency preparedness. You need to know where the nearest 24-hour emergency clinic is before you ever need it.
That makes sense.
You need to know your regular vet's after-hours triage guidance. Imagine your dog is in severe gastric distress in the middle of the night. Your adrenaline is spiking. Your cortisol is through the roof.
It's terrifying.
That is the absolute worst time to try and recall exactly what anti-inflammatory medication they were prescribed last week or exactly how much weight they've lost over the last 3 months.
Wow, okay. That makes total sense. Because if you give an emergency vet the wrong information about an anti-inflammatory and they administer a steroid on top of it, you could cause a severe ulcer.
Exactly. It can be fatal.
Having the medical history instantly accessible, whether in a physical folder or an app like VitalPet, means you can just hand it over to the professionals. You aren't guessing through a haze of panic.
And beyond just emergencies, it transforms your relationship with your regular vet into a true, proactive partnership. If you walk into a clinic and say, well, he seems a bit slower on walks lately, the vet has to guess. They have to run a massive, expensive panel of tests to find the needle in the haystack.
Right.
But if you walk in and say, here is his weight trend for the last year, he's gained 3 pounds. And I've noted in my app that he's been specifically struggling to push off with his left hind leg for the last 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
You are giving them actionable data. You are working with biological facts, not generic emotional observations.
It turns the vet visit from an expensive guessing game into a targeted strategy session.
Yes.
And that perfectly lines up with what the source material calls the ultimate meta principle of this entire Rottweiler Health Academy checklist.
Adapting care as the dog moves through life.
Right. It is the realization that an 8-week-old puppy is biologically, psychologically, and physically a completely different creature than a 3-year-old dog.
Absolutely.
And that 3-year-old is a completely different creature from a 9-year-old dog. Lifelong health is not built through occasional massive heroic efforts at the vet clinic.
The longevity of the animal is built through the accumulation of small, highly observant, steady habits.
Yeah.
It is the consistent, purposeful daily walk. It's the 20 minutes of scent training to engage the olfactory bulb and tire out the brain.
Just paying attention.
It is watching how they move when they get up from a cold floor after a nap. It is having the discipline to adjust their dinner down a quarter cup when you notice their waistline disappearing.
It's attention. Attention is the real checklist. So, to summarize this journey for you, the listener, raising a healthy Rottweiler, or truly any breed of dog, doesn't demand perfection from you.
Not at all.
You don't have to be a canine nutritionist, and you don't have to be an animal behaviorist. It just demands consistency. It demands a realistic awareness of their changing life stages and a willingness to build a proactive partnership with a vet who has the data they need to actually help you.
It really is a powerful, elegant framework for extending the quality of a life. And honestly, analyzing all these veterinary transcripts leaves me thinking about how we apply, or fail to apply, these exact same concepts outside the realm of veterinary medicine.
What do you mean, like to other animals?
Oh, to us.
Humans?
Yeah. Well, the sources emphasize so heavily how deeply a dog's biological needs change from youth to adulthood to their senior years.
Right.
The entire thesis of the series is that you absolutely must adapt their diet, their physical exercise, and their medical checkups to match their current stage of aging. If you don't, they break down.
Yeah, we covered that.
But how often do we as humans stubbornly apply the exact same routine to our own bodies in our 40s or 50s or 60s that we used when we were invincible in our 20s?
Oh, wow.
We eat the exact same way, we attempt the exact same high-impact workouts, we ignore our own persistent check engine lights, and then we act surprised when our own joints and cardiovascular systems start failing.
Wow. If a working dog requires a radically adapted, life-stage-appropriate approach to age gracefully, we probably shouldn't expect anything less for ourselves.
Exactly.
Are we paying attention to our own persistent changes? Are we tracking our own baselines? That is a profound question to walk away with.
It really is.
It turns out the manual for a complex biological system was in front of us the whole time. We just had to learn how to read it for our dogs to realize it applies directly to us, too. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep paying close attention to the subtle, persistent patterns in the world and the living things around you.